half meter to 1 meter by the end of this century, and then by 2300, by the end of next century, we may get up to 3 meters more. And this is an area where we have lots of uncertainty, and the uncertainty is very much related to the fact that we don't know what's going to happen to the Antarctic glacier, where we have the biggest mass of ice worldwide, and in the worst case we could see up to 2 meters sea level rise by the end of this century if the melting of the Antarctic glacier happens in a speedier manner. The good news from the recent IPCC report is that this worst scenario that we used to have in the previous reports, they are not very likely anymore. So it seems that we can somehow mitigate climate change, but so far we haven't. We are not on a track towards Paris Agreement targets. Next, please. And there's a likelihood that we would hit the low limit of Paris Agreement 1.5 degrees during the coming 5 years, and there's 40% chance that 1 year within the coming 5 years would be already 1.5 degree warmer on temporary basis. On permanent basis, that may happen much later. Next, please. And finally, I would like to say that we are not yet on track towards the Paris 1.5 to 2 degrees limits, although positive things have started to happen, and the political interest to mitigate climate change is clearly growing. But to be successful in this effort, we have to start acting now. We cannot wait for decades to act. We have to start acting already during this decade. And that's one of the challenges for the forthcoming COP26 meeting, to raise the ambition level and to be able to reach 1.5 to 2 degrees, which would be the best for the welfare of mankind and our planet. Next, please. And here we are summarizing the results of this report. So we have to raise the ambition level of mitigation. And we have started seeing events which have been unusual in the past, that they're becoming more usual because of climate change, and this anomaly in emissions last year is over, and we are more or less back to the 2019 emission levels, and this health case COVID doesn't have a very strong link to any weather patterns. The only link that we have found is related to air pollution. So the polluted areas have seen more mortality than other parts of the world. And sea level rise has been accelerating, and this will continue for centuries. And there's a chance that we would hit the low limit of Paris Agreement during the coming 5 years, and that's 40% chance for that. This was all from my side, and I'm open for questions or comments from your side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Talas, for that detailed presentation of United in Science 2021. And as we said at the beginning, this is a cooperation with several UN agencies and academic institutions, and we just want to also thank the contributions of this report, and also the lead team with Professor Jörg Lutebacker, who is the WMO chief scientist and also is joining on the Zoom link. We're now going to ask for any questions from journalists on the press conference, and could you please raise your hand if you would wish to ask for the floor. So first of all, I'll go to the Swiss news agency, Laurent Serio, please.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. Thank you, Secretary General. You mentioned an increasing interest in climate action. when you assess what you have heard or read so far from the different member states, how do you assess the preparation for the COP? Does it seem satisfactory, or aren't you confident on what they might achieve? Is there a need for even stronger preparation for the gathering? Thank you.
Thank you. Very good question. So, as I said, we have heard encouraging news. It seems that quite many countries worldwide are aiming at becoming carbon neutral by 2050 or 2060, which is the aim of China. And the good news is that we also have both the technological and financial means to be successful with climate mitigation, and even theoretically reach the low limit of Paris Agreement, 1.5 degrees. But what needs to happen is that we have to start acting during this decade already. So we cannot wait for several decades to act. Otherwise, we will lose the chance to reach to this Paris 1.5 to 2 degrees limits. And there's going to be lots of pressure on countries that they would make commitments for the coming 10 years to mitigate, have ambitious mitigation plans for until 2030. So that's our challenge. And so far we haven't heard enough such commitments that we would be heading towards the Paris limits. But I would say that the political interest to mitigate this is higher than ever.
Thank you. Just to remind you, if you want to ask the floor, please raise your hand on the chat. We're now going to Jamie Keaton from Associated Press. Over to you, Jamie.
Good morning, Professor Thallas. Nice to see you again. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah. Sorry, I had some difficulty with this the other day. I wanted to know if you could just be very specific. Obviously, this is a compilation of a lot of different science that has been out there already. I'm just wondering, in terms of the projections, what specifically is new in this report compared to the IPCC report, or is it really just more of a sort of assessing that data? And then the second question just has to do with what you just touched upon. How optimistic are you that countries are going to be able to get their act together between now and 2030 to help meet the Paris targets?
Yes, so IPCC reports, these main reports, they are published typically every 7 years, and they are dealing with the peer-reviewed literature which has been published in the peer-reviewed journals during the past years, and in this report we are also including what we have observed during the recent years. The IPCC report information is typically lagging at least couple of years behind what's happening in real atmosphere. And in this report we are summarizing what has happened in the real atmosphere, and for example we have estimated what has been the impact of emission drops during this pandemic lockdowns. We have also estimated what has been the contribution of climate change, the most recent disasters like the forest fires in Canada and USA, and flooding event in Germany, and then we have also estimated what is the likelihood that we would hit the low limit of Paris Agreement, and then we have of course also information on greenhouse gases until this year, and also information on temperature changes until this year, which wasn't the case in IPCC report. So that's the thing, and we are very much echoing the same message as the IPCC report, and there were some thinking that the COVID lockdown would have had positive impact on the real atmosphere, which is not the case. And as I already said, the bottleneck of the COP26, one of them is going to be how much we are ready to start acting already during this decade. There's been classically thinking that perhaps in the future something may happen, but it's obvious that we have to start acting already now if we want to reach the lower limit of Paris Agreement. And this is one of the challenges that both the UK government and we at the United Nations are elaborating and encouraging countries to raise the ambition level. So now we are heading towards 2 to 3 degrees warming instead of 1.5 to 2 degrees, and it has been shown clearly that it would be beneficial for the welfare of us human beings and welfare of the biosphere and the planet to reach even the low limit of Paris Agreement 1.5 degrees.
Thank you very much, Professor Tallis, for that answer. I just wanted to ask anybody else want to ask any further questions. Can I go back, I think, to Laurent from Swiss News Agency? You want to come back on a question, Laurent?
Do you believe that the multiplying prevalence of fires and floodings in the last 2 years in the middle of the pandemic contributed to that growing consciousness from member states? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. We were a little bit afraid that this pandemic would have been shadowing the even bigger problem, long-term problem, climate change. And it's important to compare COVID crisis and the risk related to climate change. Because of COVID, we had very dramatic impacts on our everyday life and all these lockdowns and so forth. And with to be successful in climate mitigation, we would need changes in our everyday life, which wouldn't be very dramatic. They would be actually fairly moderate. And but if we fail with the climate mitigation, we would have a permanent problem for at least hundreds or even thousands of years, and both the economic and human well-being effects would be much more dramatic than this COVID pandemic, which has been hitting us all in a dramatic way. So that's something to keep in mind. But the good news is that despite of this attention to pandemic, countries have come out with more ambitious plans to mitigate. That's the case in European Union, USA, G7 countries in general, including Japan. China has come out with ambitious plans, and also fossil fuel dependent economies like Saudi Arabia and Russia have also indicated that they would like to aim at becoming carbon neutral by 2050. So this is very positive news, but we have to speed up these mitigation efforts to be successful.
Thank you very much for those questions. It doesn't appear we have any more questions from the floor. So I'd like to thank all of the journalists and everyone following on UN Web TV for this live stream event on the United Science 2021. The report will be available on the WMO website, and we also would thank our partners of United in Science. The report will also be brought into the discussions with world leaders, with the UN Secretary General in advance of the General Assembly. And we also hope to use the results of this as we move in towards COP26 Glasgow meeting in early November. So thank you very much for joining this morning, and we wish you a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.